Cheryl Rose. I'm the National Director of Performance Programs at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I'm really excited to get into this conversation, not least because this limited series has already won an award for Best TV Series, but it's also got 19 nominations from every other craft guild, from the DGA, the PGA, obviously SAG-AFTRA, the cinematographers, the art directors, the hair and makeup group, the Golden Globes. Every guild has recognized this dream team. And I want to start by introducing you to two of the executive producers. First, Michael Costigan, whose credits include, it blew me away, To Die For, Bottle Rocket, The People vs. Larry Flint, A Bigger Splash, and Brokeback Mountain. Michael Costigan. You're a legend. Also working with Michael, we have Natalie Sandy from Piece of Work Entertainment. Showrunner, the Eisenberg. He'll be with us in just 1 second. Of course, Lee and Natalie worked together previously on We Worked and Little America, also for Apple TV. And shall we begin? Yes, the star of the show and also executive producer, Academy Award winner, Brie Larson. We'll validate these parking when he gets here. I want to start with sort of the genesis of the project. Who found it first? How did you all assemble? How did this come together?
I'll pass that over to you.
Well, it started with Bonnie Garmus. So basically, Bonnie Garmus wrote her first novel. Lee Eisenberg.
I interrupted you, sorry.
We're talking about the genesis of, Lee is a big interrupter. I think all four of us can say there's been a lot of interrupting. Okay, so speaking of interrupting, Bonnie Garmus started with the novel. It was her first novel. She's in her 60s. She's a science writer. She had a terrible J at the office where she proposed an idea, was summarily shot down, and then a man at the other side of the table said, well, what about this idea? Basically paraphrased what Bonnie said, and Bonnie was so frustrated she went home and started a novel and wrote her superhero, Elizabeth Zott. And so that's really the genesis of the project and what you just saw here. So that was Bonnie's novel. It was a first novel. It was discovered at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and then fortunately we read it, and it's not like we're any geniuses here because look at everybody that's discovered the book, and we got very lucky because we thought, after meeting Bonnie, well, who would play Elizabeth Zott? And it really was one of those moments where we thought, well, what is Brie Larson doing? And it turns out that Brie was thinking about what she would want to do for television because she had not done something like this for television before. So it was during the pandemic, and literally from my basement office, spoke with Chris Fiotto and then Brie Larson, and that's how it began. And you'll hear the rest of the chain because Brie was our producer and producing partner well before coming on screen here, which, I mean, you've all now seen what she created. But I should give it to Brie because how it got here is, I think, testament to how this all stitched together in such an exciting way for all of us and hopefully for you too. So hand it over.
Well, the game that we were playing for a while was how long can we go before someone says no? And really just no one said no. That was really it. And that's not normal. Normally part of the experience is needing to sit with the no's and the rejection and all of that, especially with a story like this. But I think because of the nature of Bonnie's work was just so strong. I mean, really for the longest time, what we had was the book to show. But it was such an engaging read. It made it so easy to get people, executives, Apple, to just put it at top of their list. And Elizabeth was just always so clear to me. So then it was very easy then for it to find. Well, actually, Lee, have you talked about how you found the book? What story are you telling?
The story.
I'll leave that with you.
Oh, okay, thank you. My wife read the book. My wife is here. Emily, who co-wrote 2 episodes of the show. So she read the book first and said, this is a series.
We didn't know that he was reading the book.
Yes.
Just to be clear. We were just bopping along on our own journey going, I wonder who can help us.
And she said, you need to read this immediately. And because my wife said it, I read it immediately. And she was right. And I have a deal at Apple with Natalie. And we found out that Apple had the show. So I cold called them. And I didn't really know what that meant. I just said, if there's any way, I just kind of wanted to like schnorr onto a project that wasn't mine. I was like, oh, this would be amazing. Could I be involved in this in some way? And they were looking for a writer at the time. So I think within a day or two, I was on the phone with Brie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And talked to her about my vision of the show. And
I said, could you start right now?
Yes. There's a little bit of
accelerated.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little bit of accelerated writing period. And we were just off to the races.
It's amazing, and I love that you brought your wife in as a writer too. I want to talk about how you assembled everybody else too, because I recognize that a lot of the department heads are female, and also that, I was saying before you arrived, every guild has nominated you for Best TV Series. The cinematographers, the art directors, everyone, PGA, DGA, SAG-AFTRA, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, 19 nominations, girls, including yours, so congratulations. So I want to start by talking about the directors, the choice of the directors. Some of them are more well-known than others. You know, I feel like Bert and Bertie already have a huge following, but I want you to tell me what drove the decision to break the episodes up between 4 directors. And how did you do that? How did you entrust? How did you know which part of the story to lend to each director?
I mean, the way that I approach making television is completely collaborative. So the directors they were in the writer's room from the beginning. Sarah Dina Smith, who directed the first 2 episodes, we met and we just immediately connected. And so much for me is about tone, and you've spent a lot of time with someone, so you have to have the same sensibilities. And Sarah everything was just yes and. It was so additive. And, you know, one of the big concerns early on was, how do you make a show like this that takes place at a chemistry lab? How do you make it feel dynamic? How do you live with it? Is it gonna feel a little sterile? Is it gonna feel a little cold? And as I started talking to her about it, and the way that we started crafting the shots and starting to see the sets that Kat Smith was designing, just layer after layer of warmth. And that was something that was so important to me, is that I know nothing about chemistry. Everything that you see on the show is from Google. And I look back on it, and I have no idea how I wrote a lot of this, because literally it was just me Googling different things about atoms and electrons and
then me Googling how to say them.
Right.
Pyridine.
And I really, that's not what interests me about the show and the book. All I care about is character and people connecting and making people feel. And as soon as I saw Brie and Lewis and Asia and this amazing cast in these sets, it felt, the connections were everything that mattered. That everything that I was writing towards, and they just elevated at every turn.
I also will say that directors, the story, Elizabeth Zott's story is sort of like in chapters, like someone's life.
Yep.
And every director had a very unique experience with their block of episodes. It was watching her journey. It was like the story of this life. Like, we're like, this is motherhood and grief, and this chapter is discovering a new path for yourself. It was really like every director felt like had their own almost Elizabeth that they were working with, which was really interesting.
And I would say for me, being in it, the first transition from Sarah into Bert and Bertie was really hard for me, because you create this intense connection and you're building something furiously, and then you have in TV, sometimes it's like over a lunch break. It's not like a clean, like, rest, have a weekend, enjoy that. It's not that. It's like you're in between. It's like you're in college, and then it's Christmas, and then there's a new person that's in charge. And I struggled with it at first. And then I realized that it was a huge asset to the show, because Elizabeth can't hold on to her life, nor can any of us. Sorry, spoiler. And so with that, to have every month it was like not just new director, new cast, new cinematographer, there was a core group of, but then I learned that there was a core group that was there. These people were always there.
She never learned our names.
I knew you were there.
I felt you were always lingering.
Yeah, you. But there was a core group that was there, and it allowed me to understand that this feeling of how fast TV moves, that you do a scene that felt really fun and good and it was over really quickly. We'd do 4 scenes a day or something, sometimes more. Or something that felt really hard was also gone really quick. And then those people that you love, well, that character is gone and we're not seeing them again. And that sort of feeling made me enjoy the presence of it. And I learned so much through the process of making this, through the process of TV specifically and this character in this show. It just made me grow exponentially, and not just artistically, but also just as a person.
There's so much I want to dig into there, but first this transition from moving from this brilliantly drawn love story. Episode 1 and 2 carry us through the whole thing. As we were introduced to you and we learn all of these things and we fall in love with 2 scientists. And then, but the transition of, because episode 3 is grief. It's so much about loss and grief. So was that helpful?
Which part?
You lost Sarah. No. But while you're working on this episode, which is a major gear shift in the story.
Yeah. I don't know how to pull that one apart actually, because it's part of the reason why I'm very careful about what jobs I take, is because I feel like whatever story you're telling, it becomes part of your life somehow. And I don't know if it's because you're just marinating in it so much, but it takes it on and you start to see it in everything. And so I don't know if part of my sadness with this transition had to do with some part of my brain piecing that together or not. There's certain kind of magical synchronicities that I'll say that happens with my job that I don't have the answer to, and I don't know if I want it. I don't know if I want to know if I'm tricking myself into believing or not, because I also know how to shed it and I know how to find what's true in it. So I don't know. I don't know if in those moments I try and find a way to make it easier for me to play this character and to make sense of her, or if it's just that things magically happen to fall in my lap.
One thing about your performance that also struck me in 3 and 4, I think when I was watching the love story, I was so swept up in it, I wasn't really thinking about your performance, which is praise, I'm sure. But with 3, I was like, wow, she's doing nothing. And then I was like, wait, she's doing everything. No, wait, what is she doing? And I'm sure that...
That was me in the edit for all of 3. I was like, I'm not doing anything, Lee. I'm not doing anything. And he was like, it's good. I mean, I would have these days with that where I'm not like that. I'm not like Elizabeth. I'm like... freaking commercials make me cry. You know what I mean? Like, if a flower looks at me the wrong way, I'm crying. So it's just like, I'm not like that. And so it was really hard and a big act of trust when I felt like I had a lot to cry over. I felt like I could get it out. And it would take more time to get into why that is. Like, there was, again, so many things about like the actual house we were filming at and the story of that house that I was like, I need to cry for this house. I need to cry for these things. And Lee was just like, no. And I was like, why? And we eventually were able to come to the place where it was like, I might just have to cry and then just disregard that take, just don't use it. But I might just have to get it out because it hurt. It actually physically hurt to like hold this feeling of grief that was welling inside of me and to like push it down all day, and then to be around a crying baby, which is also just like primally hard in a way that I didn't know was so hard. And so then even in the edit, I really had to relinquish control with that one. I felt like all the other episodes I was like on point and obsessive and could spend all the time in the world being in the edit. It was like one of my favorite times ever was being in the edit with the 3 of you. Just the best. But that episode, I would never write anything down, really. I just feel like I have to trust you because I don't see it. I don't see what I'm doing.
So I guess we should say Lee, good eye.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All 3 of you were in the edit. You're up for an Eddie Award. So I'm really interested to understand as well, like the mechanism or the chemistry between the 3 of you. Who does what? How do you distribute the work?
Well, Natalie is the brains of the operation. I will start with Natalie. I mean, I think this dovetails with what I also want to add, because we started speaking about the book, but it might look seamless, but this is, I think, to those of us who were so intimate with the source material, it was such a beautiful adaptation that Lee and his team of Natalie and also Alyssa Karasek pulled off, because it isn't always obvious, it isn't always propulsive, it isn't, more conventional, here's what the character wants, here's what she's gonna do, this leads to this. And I think between Brie's performance and this really extraordinary basically, first of all, this adaptation by Lee and his partners, and then also allowing us to collaborate in that way, where Brie as a producer and an actor could dig in. And that's really what's been so fun for us, frankly, this group and our larger group who made it. It was such a genuinely collaborative process where, I think, Lee, for you, right? Like, it was always wanting to hear how to really make this soar, because it's a range of emotions, it's complicated ideas, it's how does the audience access it, what do you know, what do you not know? And that was something that it was such a great process, I think, for everybody involved, even key crew members who were intimately involved with Lee, with Natalie, with all of us, that we were all really trying to go as deeply as possible and be true to the story and not feel like we had to rely on convention. And that really started with, Lee digging in and saying, really feeling the adaptation and really working his way through and presenting what you guys just saw.
I also think we really trust each other, but without ego. And I know that I think a lot of people say that, but seriously, in just you taking us back to the edit, Brie, that was such an amazing time, because we got to try things and then really sincerely ask each other, what do you think? What does that make you feel? What does that make you feel? Oh, let's try this thing. Oh, wait, that's not quite working. And we really got to do that. We really played together all as just partners in that way. And it was really, really, there was a lot of trust in kind of following your instincts and, oh, I don't know, that's not quite it. Let's try this. And, oh, no, you were right. That works. It was just, that's kind of how the whole process was from the beginning.
I think the only way that I know how to do it, I was talking about collaboration earlier, is to have everyone be better than you, or feel that at least. Truly, I like every department head, I'm just like, oh, they're an expert in their field, and my job is to synthesize all those ideas and then kind of present it to others and see how that feels, and then go into the edit and say, let's try it 50 different ways. I mean, you're spending, Harold Ramis once said, you make a movie 3 times, you write it, you shoot it, and you edit it. And it turns out that's the same for television. No, it's constantly evolving. If you don't allow it to evolve, and if you are so stuck in the first idea that you have, or you think your idea is the best one, best of luck to you. I think that's really a foolish way to do it. And it's also, I'm lazy, and I can't imagine not having other people come in and do the work, like Brie. Because I was going to play Elizabeth initially.
No, exactly. And thank you for stepping down.
I felt spread it around a little. Yeah.
No, it's crazy to imagine, right? It's like, ooh, he's coming for my career. But I think part of this is it's actually making things, at the core of it is very simple, which is we're all in it because we believe in the thing that we're making. And if we all purely just believe in that, about making the best thing we can, then all of this other stuff falls into place, because no one has to be right. It's okay if someone's wrong. It's very vulnerable being in the edit. It's it's your words, but it's my face sometimes. And it's we have to be sorry about that. Oh, why did I blink like that? Sorry, that's not usable anymore. And you just have a laugh about it and you figure it out. And it's it becomes a learning experience. If anybody starts to come in with any of this, this rub where it's about them, then the whole thing gets hijacked. It can be you could have all of us in the room, and it just takes one person that has it in for themselves and their ego and their self-interest, and it taints the project. And we just lucked out that this fell into place in this way. And I think it's a testament to Bonnie's material that it attracted people of the right, sort of makeup, that we, without even having some sort of tech summit before, being and here's our pillars of truth, we just knew what we were doing. And it makes it a pleasure, because it's actually fun then. If you can fail, and it's safe to fail, I mean, that's all we could ever ask for in this life, I think.
Exactly. And it is a beautiful adaptation, and in some places it seems like there is new dialogue, and in other places you don't need it because it's so visual. And I wonder, as an executive producer, did that give you more permission with the script to just work from instinct, whether it was on the page or not?
Well, the reality is I've always actually been quite strong in a bit. I know what I want, and I also have like a pretty clear feeling when something's not right. And it took me a long time to realize that actually what I was doing was producing the things that I was acting in, and people don't like it when you're just an actor asking for these things. To me, they're very normal, reasonable things. I think it's very strange as an actor to, for example, do a scene in your bedroom that you've never seen before. Your character's bedroom, and you don't know what it is. It's like, how is it possible that that's our creative process? I just feel like it's a team sport. Let's act like it's a team sport. So to me, the producer title allowed me more access, but also it allowed me to just have a voice for the things that I just always wanted to have a voice on. And I'm always happy to be wrong, but I feel like if there's no way to imagine that any one of our jobs, including all the other jobs that are not represented here tonight, we're all connected, we're all dependent on one another. And so I'm just saying, can we just allow ourselves a bit more transparency and communicate a little bit more so that we can make this a more collaborative, smoother ride and just own up to what it is. The concept of cast and crew doesn't work for me. The "and" is a big problem for me. It creates this delineation between both sides, and they're not communicating. And so by me taking on this title, it was just reinforcing what I was already doing. It's just people listened in a different way because it had a word that people are like, oh, that's what that means. She's not bossy, she's a producer.
I love it. To get into some of the other departments a little bit, you have this rock star casting director, John Patsadera. And I just loved Lewis Pullman. Were there chemistry reads? How did he fit into place?
No, there was strangely, no chemistry read. And I will give a little shout out to Miss Alice.
Miss Mad, Alice Halsey.
And I bring that up as another incredible example. Lewis being one, Asia being another, and Alice being I feel the great loves of Elizabeth's life. And none of them I had any sort of chemistry read with before. And they all just worked out swimmingly and magical. And I remember so clearly as we were talking about these changes of fortune, first day with new directors, and I was like, oh, I really hope that Alice is cool. And we met and we just got on like a house on fire, and I was like, I'm gonna be great. The next month is gonna be killer. So she's one of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Thank you, Alice. One scene I love with you and Alice is actually with Rosemary DeWitt too, and it made me just tear when Mad is meeting her grandmother for the first time, and Rosemary asks you, what she missed. Can you tell me a little bit about what went into the performance of this scene? Were there rehearsals? How did that work?
You answer this one. Come on. So would you tell us a little bit about the day that you shared that chair and take me back?
The booth of pancakes?
Not the booth with the pancakes. Remember when the scene with the grandmother and you had your cold and you kept coughing? Yeah. What was that deal?
It was like we'd have a great take, and then it was so much fun to actually see Rosemary duet, and then like I'd be sitting in Brie's lap, and I'd be hearing her doing her monologue, and then cough.
She was getting over a little bit of a cold.
Yeah.
But she was so incredibly professional, and I have my hand on her back, and I could feel her holding her breath, and I was like, it's okay,
I
you can cough, it's okay. She did not want to cough on someone's line, but it was mostly everybody else talking and not you.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
I just wanted you to get a moment to look out.
Enjoy.
Everybody say hi,
Alice, before we go back to your seat, I have to ask you about working with another star of the show, the dog that played 6:30. Come on.
He was so cute. and he was so sweet. He was such a nice dog. And he was such a nice dog, and he was so cute. And he was, yeah. And he had multiple owners that would come, and I became friends with a few of them. They were nice too. So, yeah, Gus was fun to work with.
Alice Halsey, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Alice. We have to wrap soon. Before we do, I just want to touch on some of the other, the period was, the way you created the period was fantastic, from the 30s to the 60s with the lighting and the cinematography, but I want to talk about some of the ladies. Kat Smith with the production design particularly, and Marin, is it Crozier? With the costumes. Whoever would like to jump in and share about some of these crafts.
I love talking about crafts. Brie and I were just talking about crafts before.
Looming and
different
miniatures,
kinds
to be
of crafts.
specific.
Looming and scrapbooking. But Kat and Mirren, well, Brie had already worked with Mirren before, so they knew each other. Mirren is, a goddess of the costume world. In this specifically, if you go on her Instagram, you can see inspiration pictures from each outfit. And the level of detail that she put into these costumes, all handmade for Brie. She created this whole life and this whole world for for Elizabeth's lab coats that she would wear on Supper at 6. How they all told a story. That was all Mirren. And she, I think, like Lee said, if you get people who are the best at their craft, you can trust them endlessly. So we knew Mirren was often like magic Mirren land, and we were like, I cannot wait to see what she comes back with. And there was a time where I did try and cover up your dress with a coat because it was winter. That was not a good day. Mirren was like, Natalie, I have to talk to you. So Brie's dress is iconic, and if you cover it with a coat, it's not going to be a good time. And it was winter, and I was like, it's fine, just get rid of the coat. Get rid of the coat.
No one noticed that it was winter. They cared about the dress.
Yeah, whatever. I was delighted to get that call from her. She's the best. And then Kat built this world. The level of research that Kat did for this show and does on all of her projects is like astounding. And I know there's like a story with you and Kat in the kitchen, and sort of the first time you saw the kitchen, you were like, I like this too much. It has to be even more repulsive.
Yeah, Kat made the Supper at 6 kitchen too cool, I thought.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
To be specific, she happened to make a kitchen that looked identical to the kitchen that was in my home. And so I was like, this can't be right. And so I told her that it needed to be more pink, and she came back with a pink kitchen.
and she is, she's another person who's the best at what she does. There's a scene where Elizabeth divides the lab with tape between her and Calvin to divide them. And I did receive an email called The History of Tape, because we had scripted something that didn't exist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I still have a picture on my phone called The History of Tape from Kat Smith. And I just think that's delightful. Those are like the best emails to get, because you're getting an email called The History of Tape from someone who is taking this incredibly seriously, as they should. And we had scripted the wrong kind of tape. Lee.
I was testing her. I know the history of tape.
So a lot of like hundreds of things like that, these little gems that I remember from that experience that like I'll never forget, and I love them so much. And I felt that way about everybody that was, bringing this world to life. It's not easy, and it takes people with a real keen eye.
Should we add Courtney as well? Because there's a whole food
Courtney
component to this. So
Yeah, my best friend did all the food. Elizabeth's food.
yeah, good producing, right? Bringing her in and
Well, can I
She's an incredible
say?
chef. She's an incredible chef, and she wanted to make sure that the food was going to be as delicious on screen as it was in our minds as we read the book. And Elizabeth has to be the best chef and the best cook, and so you have to convince the audience of that too, and that was all Courtney.
Well, you obviously are a dream team as well as assembling a dream team. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of these experiences with us.